Welcome to Against Medical Advice Podcast. I'm your host, Jimi Diamond. Today is International Overdose Awareness Day. And in this podcast, I'm sitting down with Doreen Barr of In Ryan's Name. Doreen Barr is the mother of a son who passed away of an overdose back in 2015. This is every parent's worst nightmare, and she is so brave and courageous for having sat down with us to have this discussion. You know, after seeing this podcast, it's amazing to see Doreen's bravery and courage to keep Ryan's name alive. I was thinking after this podcast how one day someone's just going to say your name for the last time. If you're lucky, people will continue to say your name, but for the most part, one day there will be the last time somebody says our name. And what is the manner in which somebody says our name? Is it a bad way, a good way? You know, are people going to say our name with joy and laughing, or are they going to say it with bitterness and resentment? I think Doreen is doing an amazing job at taking Ryan's story and turning it into something to help people. If you would like to donate to Doreen's nonprofit organization, In Ryan's Name, feel free to look at the bio and make any donations possible, or reach out for questions and inquiries, or go to her website at inryansinc.com. On the road of addiction, typically people end up in three places: jails, institutions, and death. Here's the story of Doreen Barr sharing Ryan's story of how he ended up in the worst place possible. And now, my discussion with Doreen Barr. For those of you who don't know, I've known Doreen for quite some time right now. We've known each other for a couple years, and I remember when I first started doing volunteer work for Drug Free Fayette, I met up with Mike, and Mike was like, "You're unbelievable. Wait till you meet Doreen. Doreen is this firecracker. She's passionate. She's driven. She's this and that." He's like, she's not in recovery, but her son passed away from an overdose, and she just wants to do everything she can to get the message out and help people. And I couldn't wait to meet you. And I remember when I met you, I was just I just felt so comfortable with you. You reminded me of my mom. I felt like we just got along. The conversations we were having were just unbelievable. You started to share your story with me about Ryan, and I just couldn't understand the courage and the bravery that you had to stay on task with, like, doing whatever you could to use Ryan's story for good. And Doreen, your relationship with me means a lot. You know, I feel like I have another mother. I feel like you've been a part of my journey since I've been in Atlanta, and it means a lot for you to, like, actually sit down and do this for me. And not only for me, but other people, because there's a mom out there, there's a dad out there, there's a brother, there's someone who's using, there's someone who's just kind of like got to hear this. And I know that this is what you do. So I kind of wanted, and we've been waiting to do this. I've been saying, Doreen, just wait until the podcast is ready. So it really means a lot that you would sit down and, like, do this with me.
Well, you know, it's funny that you'd say that, because when I tell people about you, I tell them he's just like another son.
Yeah.
I consider you my son.
So tell us a little bit about, like, who is Doreen? Like, who are you today? And then
I'm a lot different today than I used to be. Mm-hmm. I went to college, got my teaching degree, married my husband the next month after we graduated college, had 4 children, 4 sons. My husband was in the Air Force, and we moved here when he got hired with Delta.
Okay.
So that's all I ever really wanted to be, was a mom. That was, you know, people would say, well, don't you want to do this? No, I just want to be a mom. So, I mean, that's my pride and joy, being a mom, and, you know, raising 4 sons and volunteering at their schools and just, you know, having a great time.
You were super volunteered, if I get that right. You were like getting all the fundraising
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, I did fundraising for Stars Mill. Well, in fact, I'm still doing fundraising for Stars Mill High School. I was their main fundraiser while all my kids were there for 13 years, and now I'm still selling digital ad signs for them.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Ryan and Ryan's story, and let's just kind of like jump right into it.
Ryan was my second oldest. He was born June 1986. He was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. We were based there at the time. He was always the happy-go-lucky one. He'd always give you big hugs, had a great smile. He would do anything for you. Very kind, considerate, just a great kid. And he set football records at Stars Mill High School that still stand today for receiving records. He was a receiver. And he went to college at Bloomsburg University to play football. And his junior year, he was hurt and had to have a pin put in his hand, surgery. And, we didn't think too much of it. We're a football family. All of my kids and my husband played football. And so he had the surgery, had the pin put in. Then the next year, he dislocated his shoulder during a game. So he was prescribed pain pills.
How did he first injure his hand?
He was in the weight room and somebody dropped a weight on his hand.
Okay. And then you said did he get pain pills for that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He got pain pills for that because he had to have the surgery. He was prescribed opioids. And from what he told us, the team doctor continually prescribed it to him for his last 2 years of college.
He injured his hand, gets prescribed the opiates, and then you said he injured his shoulder?
Dislocated his shoulder.
And so from the time that he injured his hand and he injured his shoulder, that whole time he's being prescribed by the doctor?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what he told us, yes.
Okay.
And when we look back now, 3 other members of his college football team have died of overdoses. Yeah.
Yeah.
When
I was in high school, I played hockey for my whole life. And when I was in high school, there was like this super amazing hockey team. And they were all really good. We actually won tournaments and stuff. And same thing, a couple kids from that team also passed away from overdoses. And it's just, yeah. So, okay, so he injured his shoulder. And then, so during this time that he's prescribed the medication, you're not even thinking about it. Is he
no.
Is he drinking and smoking at the
No,
time, or
no.
like is he
We
like
have no
using?
idea.
Is he? But do you know if he's using anything else, or you're just kind of
We don't
like,
know. I mean, the college was in Pennsylvania, so we would see him on weekends when we'd go up to see the games and, get to talk to him after the game and that evening, and then we'd fly back home. So, but, I mean, his grades were good. He sounded fine. We had no idea.
Okay. So then he hurts his shoulder. Is the shoulder different? Like, is that where things...
No, it was, pretty much the same. He didn't have to have surgery or anything, but they fixed his shoulder, helped him. And we didn't know anything until he graduated college, got his degree in exercise science. He was a gym rat. He loved the gym. And his goal, he wanted to own a gym and be a personal trainer. But after he graduated that following year, he came to us and told us that he had a problem. And we had no idea. He was a functioning addict. We had
No idea.
No.
Until he came... Now, why did he come to you and say that?
Because he told us that when he got the prescription for the opioids, he was fine. When he could no longer get the prescription from the team doctor, he wasn't there anymore. He was buying it off the street. And he said pills could be $30, $40 a piece.
So was he like out of money? Was he sick? So it was like out of money, like I need help?
He had gone through everything. He had a job. We thought he was doing fine. He had gone through everything. And then during this time, he graduated on to heroin because it was cheaper.
Okay. So he, because I remember the first time I opened up about my addiction, I was in a jam. I had nowhere else to go. I was stealing from this liquor store that I was working at, and they found out and they fired me. And I just remember like just defeatedness of having to go and knowing how that's gonna like hurt my mom. And I remember the drive, telling her were you guys at home sitting down talking about it, because this is the first time he's ever, and none of your other sons are addicts or anything, right? And you didn't know anything about addiction at this time either.
No, absolutely nothing. I was by myself. My husband was on a trip, and Ryan said that, we needed to talk. And he actually handed me a little bag, and he said it was heroin. I was crying. I was mad. I was angry. I was ashamed. I was scared. I was petrified. I didn't know what to do. I went and flushed it down the toilet, which we all know now that you don't do that. Mm-hmm. You dispose it safely. I just cried and cried, and all I could do was I gave him a big hug and told him that we would help him and we'd help him get through this. It was the farthest thing from my mind and just totally took us by surprise.
What was your relationship with your husband like? Because you guys have been happily married for
40 years.
40 years. High
40
five.
years.
How, because I know that like for my parents, divorce was discussions. They're always arguing because, I'm doing something the way my mom's treating me, my dad would get mad at, or my dad would get mad at the way my whatever, that whole thing. So what was your relationship with him like at this time?
We were mostly on the same page. We took Ryan to a counselor locally here in Peachtree City, and her recommendation was to throw him out of the house and let him hit rock bottom. And that's where our disagreement started. I said, I will not throw my son out of the house. Mm-hmm. And he pretty much wanted to throw him out and let him hit rock bottom. So that's when I said, well, if you can get out of the house. If you're not comfortable, then you get out of the house. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not going to throw him out. And
I feel like that is a common thing. Mm-hmm. That's like suggested, from the therapist's point of view, she's probably saying like, you need to protect yourself. You need to protect probably like your home, you guys, and stuff like that.
We didn't go back to the therapist.
Yeah.
Only because when she said that, I looked at her and I said, do you have children? And she said, no. And I just lost it and said, how dare you tell me what to do with my child when, he was 27 at the time. Mm. When you haven't experienced and you're not a mother and you don't know what that feels like. Mm-hmm. So we didn't go back. But we were pretty much on the same page about getting him into some kind of rehab facility. We didn't know who to call. We didn't know where to go. We had no clue.
Was that what you did? Was that what you guys did? You brought him to like a rehab or something like that?
Yes. My husband was talking to one of his co-pilots one time, and he had given him the name of a rehab place and just in general talking that his son had a problem. So my husband contacted him, and we got the name of Penfield Christian Academy. And we called them. They were great. Told us what we needed to bring, the money that we needed to bring. They didn't take insurance at the time. They didn't take credit cards. We needed to bring cash. And we took him up there 4 days before Christmas. Mm. This was, I think, 2012. Yeah, 4 days before Christmas.
I remember Robin, my sister, she's been going through that thing. She's 6 months sober right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And when this last time, it was right before Christmas. That's a tough decision.
Yeah.
How much did it cost? How much cash did you have to bring?
I think we had to bring, I believe it was like $6,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was for a 6-week program or a 9-week program. Yeah.
During this time that he's in rehab, are you trying like Al-Anon meetings, or are you like doing?
Yes. They told us up there that we should also start going to meetings. So we found a Nar-Anon meeting over in Sharpsburg because we were embarrassed. We didn't want to go any place locally here in Peachtree City. Which the funny part about it was when we went to Sharpsburg, I went to meetings for probably 2 years until after we lost Ryan. And slowly, some of our friends started coming with the same issues with their kids. Mm-hmm. So, but, we didn't tell anybody. I was the poster child for stigma of addiction. I didn't tell anybody outside my family, which I didn't tell my mom for almost a year.
Why do you think you didn't tell anybody?
I was embarrassed. It's not the kind of thing you go to lunch with a girlfriend and say, oh, by the way, my son is an addict. He's going through, suffering addiction. And it's just not something you talk about. At least then. I'll talk about it now. Mm-hmm. I'll talk about it with anybody. And I didn't tell my mom and dad because I didn't want them to worry. Until it got to the point where my nerves were so bad that I would start crying on the phone. And Mom would say, okay, what's going on? Mm. And I finally broke down and I told her. And I never told anyone outside of our family until the day that we lost Ryan. When I was home by myself and I got a phone call. And I had to call my best friend, screaming and crying, to please come over. And that's when I told her. Mm. I waited that long to tell anybody.
When you're telling your mom, how did your mom take it?
She started crying. They were upset. They were worried. They felt, he needs to go into a rehab. My oldest brother went into rehab right after college. This was probably 50 years ago.
Okay, for what?
Alcohol.
Okay.
He lived in a fraternity house and they had beer on tap 24/7 and he came out of college an alcoholic. Mm-hmm. And my brother has not had a drink since then. Wow. Yeah. So addiction does run in our family. My grandfather was an alcoholic. Yeah, it's there.
Was there something going on that you've had that your mom could hear it in your voice? Was this did you tell her when he was in rehab, or was there something going on?
Yeah, we told them before he went to rehab. And
okay, so you told her in the midst of him telling you and making all these decisions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. In fact, he called my mom and dad on the car ride to rehab.
What's the car ride like in?
I pretty much cried the whole way. My husband, he was strong. I know he was worried and disappointed. I mean, to be honest, when we dropped him off and they went through all of his clothing, and checked everything, gave him the rules, we could see his room. And when we left there, it was like a relief to me because I knew he was okay there. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, now I can pull myself together and have a little bit of time to try and understand all this and not have to worry so bad. Because, I mean, when you have somebody that's in addiction like this, if the phone rings, you jump. If the phone doesn't ring, you're worried. It's just a constant, you're on pins and needles, and you're always afraid for what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember my ride in, only one sentence was spoke, and I asked my parents if we could go to Chipotle. That was it. And they just looked at each other and were like, this fucking kid
that's what he wants.
That's what, out of all this shit, you know what I mean? And when they dropped me off at the airport, I remember my dad crying and saying, I just want my son back. And me holding back that knot in my throat. I could feel it. And I remember holding it back because part of me felt like he was the reason for my disease. And part of me didn't want to show him like that I'm in pain, you know. So it's like I look back into that moment, and I just, the car ride in, and then I mean when they drop me off and they find out that I'm in rehab, it's like, just like you're saying, at least he's safe. He's not like gonna hurt himself, and there's people there who are gonna take care of him, who are gonna listen to him. Is that what his experience was like? Did he have like a good experience in rehab?
Yeah. He had a great experience at Penfield. They told us we couldn't have any contact with him for the first 2 weeks. But Christmas Day, I called up there and I just said, I just need to talk to his counselor to make sure he's okay and let him know that, we're thinking about him today. And he actually said to me that he's made such great progress in less than a week that he put him on the phone and he let us talk to him. Yeah. So he did great. Made some wonderful friends there. And he actually did so well that when we went up there for his graduation, and all the other people there talk about that person, they called, my son's nickname was Bible because he started a Bible study group up there. And I was scared to death to bring him home.
Why?
Because on one hand I thought, okay, he got that certificate, he passed, he finished his rehab, he's cured. Did
you get that belief from the experience in Al-Anon, or like is what you were hearing in like Al-Anon the same as like what you believed at that time?
No. At Narnon, they told us...
Narnon, sorry. Yeah,
they told us that 92% of opioid users will relapse. And I'm sitting there thinking, not my son. He's completing his rehab. He's getting the certificate. No, he's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And luckily, when we went for the graduation, his counselor came to us and said that, Ryan has been such a positive person here that we want to keep him on for an additional 3 months, free of charge, as a servant leader.
Wow.
And I was like, thank you, God.
Did he do it?
Yeah.
Wow.
He stayed on, I think it was 2 months, maybe. Yeah.
He stayed an additional 2 months.
He stayed on, yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they told us at Narnon meetings that, his chances of relapse are so high. And I just put it out of my head and thought, no, he's got this. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's completed his, rehab. He's following the 12 steps. And he was. I mean, he stayed clean for a year.
Mm-hmm. A whole year. So
a year.
So when did he get out? So he stays clean from December to December?
Yeah.
Okay. When he gets out, is he going to meetings?
He's going to meetings. Not as much as I thought he should. But when he sat down and talked to us, he was a different person when he came home from rehab. When we got in the house, the first thing he did was give me a big bear hug. And he told me he was sorry. And, I just said, Ryan, you don't have to tell me you're sorry for anything. I love you unconditionally, no matter what. And, he stayed clean for that year.
What were you like in that year?
I was still nervous and, kind of on pins and needles. He was given a great job, but he had to go to... Was it New Orleans?
For what?
He was manager of a gym.
Oh, in New Orleans?
In New Orleans.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a Snap Fitness
Okay,
gym.
like right there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he living with you guys before he went to New Orleans?
Yeah, he came back to live with us.
Was there something different in the house? Did you do random drug screens? Were you share your location? Was there anything you put...
We didn't do the random drug tests then.
Okay.
Because he was only home for maybe a month, and then he got this job in New Orleans. But he would check in with us every day and let us know that he was okay. And, we would just talk every day.
Mm-hmm. So then after New Orleans...
When he went down there, he didn't know anybody. And he was there maybe a couple months, and he told us that a girl that he knew from college was going to be relocating, and she was coming down to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was great, because it would be somebody that he knew, and he wouldn't be alone down there, and he loved his job. And so, to me, that was perfect. Little did we know that this girl was also in active addiction.
Okay.
So we went down there a couple times. We met her. Of course, I would look for needle marks and just watch for things out of the ordinary. And we never saw anything. We didn't know that she was an addict at the time either. She seemed very nice. They got along real well. They got an apartment together. And that lasted maybe 6 months. And the next thing we know, they both came home for Thanksgiving. And we noticed that Ryan was not the same. His muscles were gone. He looked like he had lost about 40 pounds. And I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and not say anything. And then when his older brother came home, he said to me right away, he's using.
What did his older brother see that you didn't see?
The weight loss, that he was had like a quick temper.
Like a personality change, kind of?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We could tell he wasn't working out, because, Ryan was muscular. Mm-hmm. Ryan took pride in his muscles. Mm-hmm. And so I asked Ryan if he was using again, and he denied it. And we let it go a day or so. And then...
in that day or so, you must be on that alertness where any little fucking thing that he does is questionable.
Yeah.
What's that day or two like? Is it just building up for you to confront him again, or?
As a mom,
yeah,
I felt so guilty not trusting him and second guessing everything that he was doing. When he would leave the house, I'd go in and search his room. I didn't find anything, but I just thought it was so sad that I couldn't trust him. And then it was maybe 2 days later, he came to us and said that him and this girl, they were going to pack up and leave. And I said, Ryan, you're using, aren't you? And that's when he said yes. So he had gone back to heroin. The reason I didn't see ever any marks on her is because he told us that she would inject in her neck. So, of course, I wouldn't see it. I wanted to beat the crap out of her.
How didn't you? How do you not?
It was tough. We said, okay, you're not leaving. And we wouldn't let him leave. And we said, we're going to get you in another rehab. And we got her a one-way ticket home. She was from Pennsylvania. So,
Did she try to, talk at all? I would have been
no,
shut
at
your
that time,
fucking mouth.
Yeah, at that time, she walked out of our house and wouldn't come back in. She slept in the car a couple nights because she wouldn't come back in. I was blaming her, which, it was just as much Ryan as her. But I blamed her, and so we found another rehab facility. Ryan was mad because he wanted us to get her into rehab too. And we just said, Ryan, we can't afford to put her in a rehab too. We've got you, and, we're concerned about you. We will get her home to her father, and, that's all we can do. So we made some calls. I called some people from our Narn group. And
what are they saying?
They were very supportive. Two of them gave me the name of Bridges of Hope. and that was in South Georgia, down past Macon. We called Bridges of Hope. We got him in there. So it was maybe a couple days later. My husband drove Ryan to Bridges of Hope. It was a couple hours, almost 3 hours away down south. And I drove the girl to the airport.
What's that car ride like? I'd like to thank everybody for visiting the podcast. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, comment. Anything you can do to support us would mean a lot. Now let's get back to the video.
Very quiet.
You guys didn't even talk?
No, we didn't say anything till we were just about there. And I just said to her that I hope you can beat this. And, let me know if there's anything we can do. I gave her a hug when she left, even though it's not what I wanted to give her, but I gave her a hug when she left. It was, at that time, we didn't know everything that we know now. She left her journal at our house. She had been stealing from us. I got my credit card bill, and there was a $500 Western Union charge. And she was dumb enough that she did it on our computer in our home. And she would Western Union the money to a friend of hers in Colorado, and then she would send it back to her. So she stole jewelry from us. We got some of the jewelry back.
How'd you get it back? Did you discover this after she's gone?
After she was gone, yeah. We discovered the credit card bill. I actually got a call from a friend of mine, and a friend of hers, a friend of a friend, had posted that someone found some jewelry in a hotel room locally here in Peachtree City, and it happened to be, one of the things was a high school ring, and it had my son's number, not Ryan's. This was my third son, Tony's number.
Okay.
It had Tony's number on it, and she said, "I think this might belong to you." So sure enough, there was a watch, a couple necklaces, Tony's high school ring that we got back that was hidden behind a bed in a room at the hotel. Don't know how it got there. Have no idea. I just knew that we didn't want anything to do with her. She was mad because she wanted to take Ryan's cell phone with her when she left. And I said, "No, you put the cell phone down. You're not taking it."
Yeah. Okay, so she's gone.
She's gone.
You've never seen her again, right?
No.
And Ryan goes to Bridges of Hope.
Yeah.
How long is Ryan at Bridges of Hope for? And now, what's kind of like the... So, okay, you guys have done this before.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, we've done this before.
But I could hear the ladies from our Narnon group in
your
my head when they would say, he's going to relapse. They're going to... Relapse is part of recovery. They're going to relapse. So I thought, okay, he relapsed. We can do this again. This is his one time to relapse.
So you kind of saw it as like a... Okay, this is what they talk about,
Yeah.
Did the relapse, got it out of his system, gonna jump back on the bandwagon.
Yeah. And we could tell Ryan was hurting because before he left, he said to me, "I'm sorry that I'm such a disappointment." And I said, "You're not a disappointment. You're trying as hard as you can. You're doing what you need to do." He only lasted there less than a week.
Why?
I would never recommend Bridges of Hope. We didn't tell Ryan when he left that it was basically a good 6-month program, preferably a year. We just told him that, you need to go there and we'll see how things go. Well, when he got there, and after a couple days, when he found out that it was a longer program, he, I guess, had a little attitude that he wasn't going to stay that long. They put him in solitary confinement and made him write the 12 steps for hours every day. And I know this is true because I've spoken to another parent whose child also went there, and they did the same thing to him. So on the day that Ryan left, he told them that he wasn't going to stay for, a prolonged period, 6 months or a year. So they took him and they dropped him off at the closest Walmart down there, 3 hours away from home. No money, no cell phone, no clothes, nothing.
How do you find out about this? How does...
I get home from tutoring. I had gone back to work because when Ryan first told us he had a problem, I quit my job because I was going to stay home with him and he wasn't going to leave my sight. Little did I know, later he told me, Mom, drug dealers deliver. I could still get my stuff even though you're here. So I had gone back to work. I was tutoring. I got home from tutoring and there was a message on our home machine. And he said, Mom, I left. I'm going to try and find a ride home. And he called our home phone because that was the only number he knew. I mean, I don't know my kids' cell phone numbers. They're all plugged into my phone. I look for their name, hit the button, and call them. He didn't know our numbers. So I couldn't get a hold of him either. So I'm panicking. Of course, my husband's on a trip again. He's a pilot, so he's gone a lot. He was on a trip, so I'm home by myself. And I'm crying, being upset. I started calling his friends, have you heard from him? Nobody's heard from him. I call Bridges of Hope, and I talked to, the guy's name was Bart, and he was the guy in charge. And I said, where is Ryan? And his comment to me was, lady, your fucking son is probably in fucking Atlanta getting fucking high right now. Imagine a mom hearing that. So I'm crying even harder, worrying that, Ryan's dead or God knows where he is. Calling people. I yelled back at him and said, you have no business talking like that.
Who the fuck?
Yeah, and how dare you drop him off with no way to get home? Well, and the way that Ryan called us was he asked a woman in that Walmart if he could use her phone. And he called from her phone to our house phone. So about, it was late that night, maybe 11:30. I see this car pull in to our driveway. And Ryan, with his personality, he convinced a taxi driver to drive him all the way home and told him that his mom and dad would pay for the fare when he got home. Yeah, so, I mean, I was just...
I would do that. That is just something...
Yeah, I mean, only
just
somebody...
Just gotta get home. You know what I mean? I just gotta get home.
Yeah, and, I mean, the guy believed him, and thank God he brought him home, and I just ran out and gave Ryan the biggest hug, and I was just so glad to see him and know that he was alive and know that he was okay.
He's home. He's in 3 hours away in a Walmart.
Yeah. So he came in, and we sat down, and we talked, and...
What's the content of that discussion?
I just kept telling him I loved him. And I was just so glad that he was home. And he took control and he said, I can do this. He said, I can do this on my own. He said, I know the tools. I know how to do this. And then he gave me some signs. And he said, if you notice that I'm not going to the gym every day, I'm using. If I'm not eating healthy, I'm using. If I'm sleeping all the time, I'm using. If I have a temper, I'm using. Mm-hmm. If I'm falling off to sleep, I'm using. Mm. So he kind of gave us some things to look for. And then at that time we said, okay, as long as you're at our house, you have to commit to no notice drug testing. And he did, which I learned a lot with that too. Before, when we would give him drug tests, he would pass everyone with flying colors. And when he got back from rehab, I'm like, Ryan, how did you pass all your drug tests when you were still using? And he said, oh, Mom, don't you know, he had like a little sample shampoo bottle, and they'd wash it out, and he'd fill it with like yellow Powerade or yellow energy drink. And he would keep it in his pocket of his pants. And when we would say, okay, here's your bottle, go give us a drug sample. He would go in the bathroom, close the door, take that out, squirt it in. And it looked like urine. It was warm because it was in his pocket. And he'd pass the test. So once he told us that, it was like, okay, I'd say to my husband, you get your ass in that bathroom and you watch him pee. So we know. Yeah, he did.
And so from that point, did he fail drug tests?
No. From that point on, every time we gave him a test, he passed it.
And you know what, like, I did that too. I remember I went to my friend's house. His name is Bobby. He lived down the street from me. And I asked him to pee in a bottle for me. And I left the bottle of pee underneath my bathroom sink for a very long time. And I remember my dad something happened, I stole or something like that, and my dad asked me for a drug test, and I went underneath the sink, and it was like, it was usable. The most disgusting thing I had ever seen, and I didn't know what to do, so I just fucking poured it into the cup and handed it to my dad, and he's like, "Are your fucking kidneys okay? Like, what is wrong with this?" And I just sat there and just, yeah, I'm really sick. My kidneys must be messed up. I don't know what's wrong with me, you know?
Now that you say that, Ryan's two younger brothers did tell me that Ryan had asked them to give a urine sample that he could use, and they both told him no.
What's going on with his brothers? How are they reacting to this, and what's going on?
Most of the bad stuff was with him and his older brother. They had a couple knockdown, drag-out fights.
Over his addiction?
Yeah.
What? Was it just like him, Tony?
No, Chad is the oldest.
So is Chad basically not understanding, trying to, and like what was that? What were the fights about?
The day that Ryan told us he had a problem the first time, and he gave me the little bag of heroin, I actually thought I was having a heart attack. And Ryan and Chad, his older brother, got into a knockdown, drag-out fight. And Chad was yelling at him, you know, "You're ruining our family, you're tearing our family apart, you're hurting Mom." And I actually had to step in between them, and I just grabbed Ryan and hugged him and just, you know, said, "We'll get through this. We'll get through this." Yeah, his younger brothers were both still at college. So, you know, it didn't impact him as much as at home as much.
Did they, or your husband or your sons, did anybody else go to like Al-Anon or anything like that?
Yeah, my husband always, if he was home, he would go with me.
Okay, cool,
yeah.
cool.
And
that way you guys are on the same page.
Yeah. And Tony and Alex, if they were home for a break or something, they would go too.
So much support.
Yeah. But for some reason, Ryan always felt like he was a failure. I have read like notebooks that he wrote at rehab and just journals.
Is that what you got with you?
No, that's not it.
Oh, okay,
no,
okay.
No,
I was like, oh my God, I was like, you brought that.
It was painful. One of the questions one day must have been, you know, why are you getting clean and sober? And his answer was, I'm doing it for my mom, and I'm doing it for my littlest brother. And then one day he wrote, Ryan, don't do drugs today. Don't be a disappointment. You deserve a family. You deserve to be happy. You deserve a job. And then it said, make mom and dad proud. So I could tell he was hurting. But
it hurts when you're in that point and all you got is like your notebook and your thoughts.
With his younger brothers, when we got the call that Ryan had passed, and according to the autopsy, it was because his drug was laced with fentanyl. He had heroin and fentanyl. His two younger brothers were so angry. They saw what it was doing to me. They were just so angry at him that when we could go see him at the funeral home, they didn't want to go. They didn't want to see him. They were so angry. It ended up that they did. We told them that you really needed to, that you would regret it. So, all of his brothers did see him. We all went to see him and hug him and kiss him.
So he comes home, a week goes by, after a week of rehab, and then what year is this, and kind of go on from there? After he got home.
This was 2015. And, he came home from the rehab, and I'm fine. Thanks. He came home from the rehab, and he was working the program. He was going to meetings. He was going to the gym. He seemed happy. A friend of his, he was looking for a job. And we had said to him, right now your job is to stay clean and sober. That's what we want your number one focus to be. Don't worry about a job. Well, a friend of his got him a job up in Atlanta for on the weekends, and it was as a bouncer at a club. And we said, Ryan, do you really think that's somewhere that you need to be, around people that are drinking and God knows what? And, do you really think that's a good idea? And he said, oh, Mom, it's great money. And I remember I said to him, nothing good is going to come of this job. And he had the job for 2 weeks. And he loved the job. He'd come home here and he would umpire baseball games during the week. And he'd go up and be a bouncer on the weekend up in Atlanta. And all we know is that night he got a text message from his old dealer. Even though we got him a new phone, a new number, through social media, they'll find you. Social media, to me, is evil. They will find you. And he got a text message from his dealer. Hey, buddy, haven't seen you in a while. Come see me. And all we can think of is that triggered him. We could trace that he went to the ATM. He took out $30. He met his dealer up in Atlanta, bought heroin, $30 worth, and they found him in his car that next morning. He was pronounced dead at 9:42 a.m. And I got a call from one of his best friend that evening at 5:30 when I got home from tutoring. And he said, actually he Facebooked me and he said, Mama Barr, call me. And I called him and he said, Ryan relapsed. And I stayed calm and I said, okay, where is he? Thinking he's in a hospital. And that's when he broke down and he said, he's at the Fulton County morgue. And that's when I lost it. And because I was home by myself. That's when I called my best friend. I just fell on the floor and was just crying and called my mom and dad, called my husband. And that's just where it all went. So my friend came over and she called the Fulton County morgue to make sure that that was right. And he was there. And nobody came. This happened like 5:30, 6 o'clock. About 8:15 that night, the sheriff's cars pulled up in front of my house. And I told my friend to tell them to leave, that they don't need to come in, I know. But my question was, if they found him and pronounced him dead at 9:42 a.m., why did no one call me? Why did no one tell me? And then when we got the report, they actually started his autopsy at 10:05. 10:05. And I was having a normal day. If I had known, I would have gone up and I would have held his hand. But I didn't know. And then I felt I should have known. how could something inside of me not know that my son was dead? So it was just a mess. The next day, my husband called the doctor, and she put me on medication. So a lot of it's a blur. And I was on medication for 2 years.
So the 2 years, you don't remember much of that?
Oh, no. I remember all that. The funeral. I remember going to see Ryan. All of our family is in Pennsylvania. So it was just a private, our family, my best friend and her family, a couple of Ryan's close friends. We just got to see him, and then they cremated him. And his ashes are in an urn at home.
How do you work through this? So this is everybody's worst nightmare, and you've taken it to help other people. How do you go from this moment where it's, because here we are, we walk through Ryan's whole addiction pretty much, you know what I mean? Now I want to walk through kind of like, how do you take his story and turn it into hope and inspiration? And how do you get out of this? I mean, you can't get out of bed. You can't.
I actually went up. My husband took a few weeks off from work, and then he went back to work, and I couldn't be home by myself. I went up to Pennsylvania and stayed with my mom and dad for about 3 months. That whole time, every time I ate, I would throw up. I lost, it was like 42 pounds. I just couldn't eat because the nerves in my stomach, it just affected my whole body. And after that 3 months with my mom and dad, I came back home. And then we had the court proceedings because the GBI did get Ryan's dealer.
How did they get him?
We turned Ryan's cell phone over to the GBI, and they could trace the number, and they knew who it was. DeMonte Williams. He was a 19-year-old punk who had a 4th grade education. The GBI had actually purchased drugs from him before, and he was still on the street. He was still on the street because they were going for a bigger sting. So once we turned everything over to them, 2 weeks later, they did get a bigger sting. They arrested 14 dealers in the Bluff area in Atlanta. One of them was DeMonte Williams. Within a couple days, they were all back out on the street, except for DeMonte. They held him in the murder of Ryan. To make a long story short, he took a plea deal for 6 years in federal prison. He went to federal prison, and he was released after 2.5 years. Right now, he is back out on the street, even though he has been since arrested 3 more times for assault. I don't think any of it has been dealing, but it was like assault, domestic violence. Yeah. So when we had the day of the trial of when he took the plea deal, I had asked the federal prosecutor if I could speak on Ryan's behalf that day. And the judge okayed it as long as I submitted to him what I was going to say. And you know me, Jimmy. I'm not going to stick to what I have written down. I'm going to say what I want to say.
Yeah.
Well, and I did pretty much stick to what I had written down. It took me a while to write. At first, I was like, you rotten son of a bitch. I hope you burn in hell. You deserve to die. And a really good friend of Ryan's said to me, no, you need to make it about Ryan. You need to tell all about Ryan and the good things that Ryan had done and make it about Ryan. So I did. And then I told them the whole courtroom about who Ryan was and what has been taken from us. that, no grandchildren from Ryan, as far as holidays, forget it. They've taken a piece of us too that is gone. And then it was kind of like at the end, I looked at DeMonte and, he had his head down, and I just said to him, and I don't know where this came from, but I just said, as a mother, I have to feel sorry for you because no one showed up for you today. Absolutely no one was in the courtroom for him. No mother, no father, no siblings. Nobody was there. And I just said to him, nobody loved you enough to come here today for you. And then I said, and Ryan's gone, but look at all the people that are here for him today. So, as a mom, I felt sorry for him. But as a mom who lost her son, I hated him.
I feel that the fact that you practice some sort of forgiveness in that moment, like the fact that you're able to sit there and kind of like, although you don't want to, and although you hate this person, you still kind of feel empathy for them and forgive them a little bit. How the heck, where does that come from in Doreen? Is that, because I know that
was my mama heart.
Okay.
That was my mama heart.
I know you're also like a religious person too. Is that like, is there something in there that kind of...
To be honest, when we lost Ryan, I turned against God. My husband was raised with really no religion. I was raised Catholic, and all of our kids were raised Catholic, with the first communion and confirmation and everything. And I spoke to God and I said, when Ryan was going through his trouble, I said, I'm surrendering him to you. Please help him, help him. So when Ryan died, my husband turned to me and he said, where was your God? Where was your God? And I had to say, well, you're right. Where the hell was he? What did he do? He wasn't here. He didn't help Ryan. So I turned against God. I turned against the church. I didn't go to church for a long time. Then my best friend said, come to church with me. I went back to the Catholic Church and I cried through the entire Mass. And they have a Stevens ministry program there. And someone from that program came up to me afterwards and said, can I get your name? And this wonderful woman called me. And she said, I'm a Stevens ministry leader. Will you agree to meet with me? And she was probably my savior. I met with her at the church every 2 weeks for probably 2 years. And she said to me, I told her, I am mad at God. I'm pissed at God. Where was he? What kind of God is he that would allow this? And she was just straight with me. And she said, God can take it. He's tough. He can take you being mad at him. He understands, but then we started looking, what do I have to be thankful for? I have my 3 other sons to be thankful for. I'm thankful that Ryan didn't drive and run in and hit somebody and kill somebody. I'm thankful he didn't hurt anybody. I'm thankful for the life that he had. I'm still not back to where I should be. And as far as forgiving Monty, I will never forgive him. I mean, I have compassion for him because supposedly he was selling to support his drug habit too. At least that's what his attorney said, his court-appointed attorney, that he was selling to support his habit. And my question was, well, then how did he know which had the fentanyl in it and which didn't? He obviously hadn't taken the drug that had the fentanyl. But, I have compassion for him, but I will never forgive him. Totally.
Yeah. I meant merely like practicing it, like literally this is what I feel like I need to say as like a mom, you know what I mean? And in that moment, to me, it sounded like forgiveness.
Compassion.
Yeah.
But if I came across them, I'd still beat the crap out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. So how are your friends, in this time, you've been trying to fucking hide this. It's been in the closet for so long, and now it's like everybody's gonna want to talk to me about this. Everybody's gonna maybe like ask me questions. I feel like after that, maybe people start to not know how to talk to you, and people start to act different around you. Like, how do you deal with that? What happened with that?
It's kind of strange. I would say I maybe have lost a few friends. I've actually found which friends are my forever friends. Some days I look at it that maybe if I had told some of my friends, that knew Ryan, maybe they could have helped him in some way. And then in another way, I think it wasn't my story to tell then. If Ryan wanted them to know, it was for him to tell them, not for me. But, some of my friends, they didn't know what to say. Especially after we lost Ryan, they don't know what to say.
Do you want them to say anything?
Yeah.
Like what do you want them to say?
Yeah. With my really good friends, we talk about it. And I tell them, if you're thinking of Ryan and, you're thinking of a memory, share it with me. Say his name. Share things with me. A couple of Ryan's college friends would message me. I never met them, and they would say, you don't know me, but I knew Ryan, and I have to tell you a story about Ryan. And this one girl said, and I keep in touch with her even today, she said to me, when I was a freshman in college, Ryan was a sophomore, and I was very down on myself because I didn't think I was pretty. And she said every day when I would see Ryan in the lobby of our dorm room, he would turn to me and tell me that I was beautiful. And I just said to her, well, you are beautiful, and thank you for reaching out. I love to hear things like that. Some people just don't know what to say, so they don't say anything. I've had some people say to me right after we lost Ryan, well, you have 3 other kids. And I said, okay, well, which one of your kids would you choose?
Yeah, right.
And then I had somebody say to me, well, at least you don't have to worry about him doing drugs anymore. And it's like, I would want to worry every single day to have him here. They just don't know what to say. And they don't mean bad. They're uncomfortable with it, and, they just don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm. Maybe there's somebody out there who is watching this and they have a friend whose son passed away or something like that. And I think that just knowing how to support your friends, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I those memories mean so much. And when people share those memories, it puts a smile on our face, and it's a positive feeling,
Oh yeah.
Is that so?
Don't say they're in a better place.
Yeah,
I know he's in a better place, but to me, his better place would be with me.
Right here.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. What I like to say to someone, that I've met so many people since this has happened to us that have lost their children, and I always tell them, your child is still with you. You carry them in your heart. You will see them again someday, but carry them in your heart. And, and that's what I do. I actually have one friend, really good friend, who waited, I was in contact with him, and he waited about a year, and he finally called me and he said, I need to meet with you because I need to tell you something about Ryan. And I thought, oh geez, what are we going to hear now?
Mm-hmm.
And, I went to his house and we met, and he says, I just have to tell you that it was less than a week before Ryan died. He said, I saw Ryan at Partners Pizza, and he was with a bunch of friends and I was with a bunch of adults. And he said, your son, the minute he saw me, he got up and he came over and he gave me the biggest bear hug. And he said, just gave me a hug and asked how I was doing. And he said, when we got up to leave, your son got up to leave and came over and gave me another hug and said, love you, man.
Mm.
So he said, he didn't want to tell me too soon until I was ready. And, I love to hear things like that. Tell me about them. Talk about them.
Yeah.
Talk about addiction. I mean, we need to break that stigma. Talk about it. I could have hit myself in the head. Talk about it. But you'd be surprised. Schools don't want to talk about it.
Why not? Why?
They don't want to admit there's a problem in their school. They don't want to admit there's a problem. And if you're not talking about it, you're doing a disservice to so many people.
Because it's almost like when I hear an institution talking like that, and then I hear you describing it, like that is almost, I don't want to say that's I don't want to say anything permanent, but it's like that's the idea that you had, that you didn't want to share it with people.
Yeah.
And you felt alone, and we don't want to sit here and say like what if, but that's a scary place to go down, and they're in the same situation. If they keep on saying that to themselves,
oh yeah,
they may have more problems at the school and stuff like that.
I can name 17 kids from Fayette County that have lost their lives to overdose. And, a lot of people, places, they don't want to talk about it. How impactful for me to be able to walk into Ryan's school, the high school that all 4 of my kids went through and graduated from, for me to be able to pull all the kids in the auditorium or the gym and to say, my son walked these hallways. My son ate in your cafeteria. My son set records on your football field that still stand today. And because of a bad choice, my son is dead. Just bring it to life. Let them see, okay, show all the faces of the kids from our county that have died. Show them what has happened. And now with all this fentanyl, kids need to know. I mean, one time can kill them.
I was thinking the other day, I have not heard, the only thing I hear about fentanyl is that it kills people and it hurts people. I have not heard one success story for fentanyl. No one's out there saying, oh, fentanyl saved my family, fentanyl saved this. Like, fentanyl is only hurting people. Who was the you at this time? So who's the person at this time who you look to and you're like, how the fuck do you do this? I need to be like you. Like, was there somebody who you knew whose son or had a kid who passed away that you kind of looked to as like a mentor for help? Or
No.
You were just like figuring it out on your own?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you go back to the meetings?
I went back to one Narnon meeting after we lost Ryan, and I didn't stay for the meeting. I just walked in. They all knew that, I had lost Ryan. One of the ladies actually came to my home, and I was crying, and I said, I just need to say this one thing to all of you. In the meetings, they talk about not enabling, and, what right works for one person might not work for another person. And I said, I just need to tell you that you do whatever you can for your person. Don't listen to anybody else. Someone else may say, well, that's wrong. You shouldn't do that. And I said, you do whatever you can to save your person. It's not right and it's not wrong. Whatever works for you, you do it. Whatever it is. And I think one day I was reading over what I had said in the courtroom, what I had written about Ryan. And I just started thinking, I started it out by saying, this is the last thing that I can ever do for my son. And I sat there thinking, that's not the last thing I can do for Ryan. I can talk about this. I can help families. I can tell Ryan's story that maybe we can save one person, one family from having to go through this. And I think in doing this, we've been a nonprofit now for 3 years. I think in doing this little by little, it's helping to heal my heart too. When we have the success stories and it helps my heart too. And it keeps me busy, and, I'm learning so much. I mean, from you and all the people that I've met at Drug Free Fayette, and I've just learned so much.
I remember I had a friend, we played hockey together, and he died in a drinking and driving accident. There were 3 of them in the car, and he hit a tree, and we would drive by the tree. I remember waking up and seeing it, and I had burned my eye. I remember the line for his funeral stretched multiple corners. I was like, this is insane. And I had burnt my eyelash from smoking weed out of a bowl. So I was like, and I burnt my eyelash, and my dad noticed it, and he said something about it. He was like, "You smoking pot?" And I'm like, "No, dude, no, no, I'm not smoking pot." And when we went up to see Scott in the casket and everything, I remember Scott's dad hugged my dad and was just like, "Don't you fucking let go." He was just like, don't, like, crying, like, emotional, like, do not let go of your son. Do not let go of him. And I'm like watching 2 men have like this moment as like a kid, and you're just like, don't even know what to think of it,
So when you, at that time, with you, did something like click in your head? Did you finally think, well, man, this affects more than just me. It affects my dad and my family. And
not at all. Not at all. If you haven't already liked, subscribed, and followed the podcast, please do so now. And if you're looking for more ways to support the podcast and our mission to help everybody, then do us a favor and go to Amazon and buy our book, available now, called Poppy Seed Poetry. I came up with this idea back in rehab to write this book, and now it's finally here, a compilation of artwork that I have created throughout my recovery, put together in a nice, easy book that you can just lay down on your coffee table and have discussions forever. You can pick it up anytime and just get a little inspiration to keep on moving forward. It's available now on Amazon, so you can go there, buy it now, or check it out in the description below. Now let's get back to the video. I didn't think of that until I didn't really think of that until like near the end, because I would act, and I would do, and I would steal, and I would expect forgiveness. I wouldn't ask for forgiveness or search it out. I expected it. I expected my parents to forgive me for stealing from them. And so it never really clicked until I remember one time my parents kicked me out of the house, and I would park. So my mom flipped her car in a DUI. My mom's in sobriety. I don't know if you know that. Yeah. So my mom's sober. She had a DUI, and she flipped her car. And I remember thinking about, not about how that is, how my mom's an alcoholic. She almost just died. But I was thinking more about how I can't wait for her to need me for a ride so I could steal from her work.
So it was still all about you.
Still all about me. It wasn't until I remember. So then I get kicked out of my house, and I say to myself, I'm not going home. Don't go home. It turns out that next thing I know, I'm parking down the street waiting for my mom to get picked up. So I'm watching my house from down the street in my car, waiting for my mom to get picked up to break into the house to steal. So I was doing that. And then one day I fucking break in, just moseying around, Pop-Tarts, grabbing socks and stuff like that, not really thinking too much about it. And I went into my parents' room to like look for money, and my mom was standing there with 911 on her phone and was like, "Get the fuck out of my fucking house right now, or else I'm gonna call the cops." And I remember my stomach just dropping, and like, I was like, "What?" And my mom was standing there with 911 on her phone and was like, "Get the fuck out of my fucking house right now, or else I'm gonna call the cops." And I remember my stomach just dropping, and like, I was like, "What?" And my mom was standing there with 911 on her phone and was like, "Get the fuck out of my fucking house right now, or else I'm gonna call the cops." And I remember my stomach just dropping, and like, I was like, "What?" And my mom was standing there with 911 on her phone and was like, "Get the fuck out of my fucking house right now, or else I'm gonna call the cops." And I remember my stomach just dropping, and like, I was like, "What?" And my mom was standing there with 911 on her phone and was like, "Get the fuck out of my fucking house right now, or else I'm gonna call the cops." And I remember my stomach just dropping, and like, I was like, "What?" And my mom was standing there with 911 on her phone and was like, "Get the fuck out of my fucking house right now, or else I'm just being like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, that's my fucking mom, dude, you know, and not being able to stop. Like, I couldn't stop in that moment and really think about it. It was like I had to go get high. So it was like you stop and you think about it, but you don't feel it, because if I feel it, it's going to be sad, emotional, and this and that, and I can't focus on that. I need to focus on the next one. So it was that's the way that I never took the time to think about what I was doing, you know?
Even when you realized that your mom was so angry that she would call 911, it didn't make a difference.
No, I was just like, she's not going to call the cops. I'm just going to get out of here and go find it somewhere else.
Because I wonder that, you know, should we have been tougher on Ryan? You know, would that have made a difference?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when my parents kicked me out of the house, I was homeless, and I legitimately didn't feel like, you don't feel it. I did not feel
You're numb.
Homeless. I'm just like, I'm going to figure this fuck out. I'm going to go crash in my buddy's house. You know what I mean? It's no big deal. And it is a big deal. And I'm the one who's in denial about the whole, like, just as much as you're saying you're in denial. Like the parents, we're in denial, we're enabling, we're doing this. We can't see beyond what's happening right now. You know, it's the same thing for me. Like, I can't see beyond what's happening right now either. And what I need to do right now is get high. So it's really difficult to, like, in the emotions, I don't want to feel the emotions. I'm getting high to suppress these emotions.
So from a mother's perspective, it's like, I'm thinking of your mother. What was she going through when she didn't know where you were living, where you were sleeping?
She was drinking. She was actively using those emotions, those feelings that she had. And this is just my opinion. You know what I mean? She wasn't coping with them at the time. And when she was coping with them, it was because she was passed out on the couch, drunk, you know.
So did you ever think, oh, well, if she can do it, I can do it?
Yeah, it was a lot of like, you're fucking drunk, and, you know, like, pointing the finger. Don't look at me, look at Robin. Like, pointing finger at my sister, you know. It's like I could point anywhere other than myself. And then when she finally got sober, 3 months later, Robin got sober, and then 3 months later, I got sober. And then it's just been, that's how we've kind of been, a couple slip-ups here and there, you know, but everybody's doing pretty good. So okay, so now tell me about, is that where, that moment where you're sitting there rereading what you had written for court, is that the moment that you say, I'm gonna do In Ryan's Name? When was that decision made?
I think the mother in me came out when I was reading that, because it hit me so hard that, you know, I actually said, this is the last thing that I can do for my son. And
so you reading that,
yeah,
having wrote that back then, so back then you're like feeling this is all I can do. Last thing. And now 3 years later, you're reading it and you're like, fucking no.
Yeah, it's like, no, I can do more. I can do more to keep his memory alive, to keep his name alive, to help others, you know, to give education to parents, to kids. You know, hell, I didn't know drug dealers deliver. Most parents don't know drug dealers deliver.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know you could cheat a urine test. You know, parents don't know these things. Mm-hmm. Parents need to be educated about the fentanyl. The kids need to be educated. You know, they need to know one time can kill. And I just started thinking, you know, I can do this. So I hired an attorney and an accountant, and they helped me with all the paperwork, which was a year's worth of paperwork and for the IRS. And our first try, we became a nonprofit. It worked.
What's the name of the nonprofit?
In Ryan's Name, Inc.
And tell me a little bit more about this nonprofit.
We help anybody that calls us if they have a need and they have a want that they want to get clean and sober. Even if a parent just wants me to come and talk to their kid or a group of kids and tell Ryan's story about what can happen, that, just because you're prescribed a medication doesn't always mean that it's okay to take. Starting with your wisdom teeth getting taken out, maybe. Ask that doctor, what are you prescribing to me? If it's, if I can become addicted to that, can you give me something else? And particularly people in sports. If you get injured in sports, you need to watch out with that pain medication. Ask for something else. And to this date, in the 3 years, we've helped 11 kids, 11 families, either get into detox. I actually drove one to rehab myself. That was a treat. I actually drove him to Penfield, the same rehab that we drove our son to.
Wow.
And I was okay all the way there. And on my way home, and once I got home, I totally fell apart. Totally fell apart. And at that moment, my oldest son called me and he said, Mom, do you know how proud of you Ryan is? So, I'll go anywhere. I'll speak. I'll tell Ryan's story, what happened with our family. And, if we can help 11 kids get into either detox, rehab, or counseling, if we've saved one person or one family, then, our whole foundation is a success.
And I mean, that what I like most about helping people with addiction is you help the addict, you help the mom, you help the dad, you help the whole family, the community, you help the employer, you help everybody. If there's someone out there, like a mom who's struggling right now, what recommendations would you give to them? What would you say to them, like right now, if they have a son or something?
I would tell them to call me. I'd love to sit down with you. The 3 words that I tell parents all the time are hope, love, and compassion. You cannot give up hope on your person. If you have no hope for them, they'll have no hope for themselves. You have to have that hope and never lose that. And love, you have to love them unconditionally. They're 2 different people when they're on drugs. It was the Ryan that we knew and loved, and then the Ryan on drugs. You need to love them unconditionally, and then you need to have compassion for their illness, because addiction is an illness, and you need to have compassion for what they're going through. But yeah, I mean, anybody can call me. They can email me anytime.
What about someone who may be in Ryan's position right now? What do you think, what would you say to someone who's maybe afraid to talk to their mom, afraid to say something? They're in that position where they're angry at the world, angry at themselves, don't love themselves. Like, what would you...
I would tell them that you can be better. You deserve to be better. You deserve to be happy. What you have is an illness, and there's help out there for you. Don't give up on yourself. Talk to whoever you feel comfortable talking to. It may not be a parent. It may be, a relative, a peer, anybody. Talk to them. Find out ways that you can get help, because there's a lot of help out there.
So now you've been doing this. You've been going around helping addicts, helping families. Like, what do you see does work? Like, now that you've been doing this and now you're educated and all this stuff, what are you seeing does work that you've learned and practiced and have been doing?
I think the parents need to realize that you can't nag the kid. Nagging does not do any good. It just puts more stress on them. You need to let them know that you're there for them. Have patience. Know that they're going to slip up. Relapsing is part of recovery. It's going to happen. I mean, it happens to the best of us. None of us are any better than anybody else. And just because you're going through hard times and you have a problem, that doesn't make you any less than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And there are people out there that can help you and that love you and will help you.
How is your family? Like, your family must be so fucking proud of you. They must be so behind what you're doing.
Yeah, my kids are real proud of me, and my husband doesn't like to talk about it a lot, but I know he's proud of me, and he said he thinks I should be a professional speaker.
Yeah,
he says, you can go out on the circuit and go speaking, and our family's great. 11 months after we lost Ryan, we had our first grandchild. With our third son, and they named him Jackson Ryan after Ryan, and he has so many traits of Ryan. It's really unbelievable. Yeah. And the one time when he was down at our house here, they live in North Carolina, when he was here, it was cold out and he needed a hat, so I went and got one of Ryan's beanie hats, and I said, oh, you can wear one of Ryan's hats. And just out of the blue, he grabbed it and he said, this smells like Ryan. And I said, Jackson, how do you know? You never met Ryan. And he said, but I just know. I know. And it was like, man, out of the mouths of little kids, it was amazing. And he just has so many, when he bounces a basketball, he sticks his tongue out like Ryan always did. And just so many traits of his. And then 2 months ago, we got a baby granddaughter.
Yeah,
it's a girl.
The girl.
Yeah, and I was so privileged and honored. I was in the delivery room with her and with her mom and Tony, my son, and it was just amazing. And so, my heart is healing. It never goes away. You learn to live with it. Your life is different. You're never the same person. I've had people tell me that you're different. And it's like, yeah, I know I'm different. I won't stay quiet. I've been through the worst of the worst. And I lost my dad this past January. He had a wonderful life. He was 91. It was very sudden. And it was so strange because I had such a peace over me that I knew Ryan was there to meet him. And I know they probably spent the next several days fishing.
Big hug.
Oh, yeah.
That bear hug.
And it was like, okay, my dad's with Ryan. They're together. Ryan's got somebody there. So, it was still painful, but it was almost like I was at peace with it. So, yeah, you're never the same. You learn to live with it. And things will make you cry. Things will make you smile.
How do you deal with the day-to-day emotion? Like, you never get over it. Like, I remember one time I sat down with my friend, and his mom passed away when we were in high school from cancer, and I hadn't seen him in so long. And I had asked him, like I remember I was about to say, like, hey, how's your mom doing? But I remembered his mom passed away. So I was like, bro, I fucking remember your mom, like, how do you like deal with your mom being passed away? And he was just like, Jimmy, you never deal with it. I think of her every day, how do you? Now, he's an angry guy who does all types of crazy stuff.
I can be angry. Yeah. I can be real angry.
How do you deal with the day-to-day emotions that come with that, the triggers, the grief, the just all that stuff?
I talk to Ryan every day. I walk and I walk and I walk. Right after we lost Ryan, I was probably walking 10 miles a day because that was my time that I could talk to Ryan. And I knew that, he was listening. Things trigger. Just anything out of the day, I may look at something and think, oh, Ryan loved that. I know Ryan's favorite meal. I didn't make it. Ryan's been gone 7 years now. Just this past year, I made his favorite meal because my grandson, Jackson Ryan, wanted it.
What is it?
Farmer John, he called it.
What is that?
It's basically cooked macaroni in with tomato soup and cooked hamburger.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And I always said I will never make Farmer John again because that was his favorite meal. And Tony had told Jackson that that was Ryan's favorite meal. And he said, well, can we make Farmer John? So we did. And we actually made it on Ryan's birthday this year, June 29th.
Are some times, since you've opened within Ryan's name, that you, other than the school, are there other times where you notice the stigma, like people not wanting to talk about it or not having just like weird beliefs about addiction? Like, how do you, or what are your experiences with that?
For Drug Free Faye at one time, I was asked to go out in the community and see about getting sponsorships, and I could tell a couple of the places that I went to, it was like something they really didn't want to talk about. Like maybe our business doesn't really want to be associated with something like that. So, but for the most part, so many people have been caring, and they want to learn more. They want to know more. Like I've gone to the PTOs at the schools, and those parents have been great. They want information. They want to know more. I know one of the things that I do that heals my heart is every year on Ryan's birthday, I go to Publix that morning and I say, okay, who's ordered a birthday cake for a little boy whose their birthday is today? And they'll pick one, and I bring a little note with me that's in the shape of a heart, and all I say is, happy birthday. Today is also my son's birthday. We lost him so many years ago, and I'm doing this in his honor. Have a wonderful day. And I don't sign my name. I just sign it, Love Ryan's Mom. And I pay for the cake, and they put this little note on the cake. So we've done that now for 7 years. And every year on the date that he passed, I go and give blood that day. So it's just, something that's quirky with me, that gives me a little bit of peace.
Yeah. What's next for Doreen? What's next for In Ryan's Name?
We just want to grow, get bigger, partner with more people, more companies that help with addiction and counseling, and we've partnered with you guys some.
Yeah.
Yep. Jimmy's my go-to man.
Oh, we do really good work together.
Yeah,
we really do.
I can always call him, hey, I've got this kid who needs some help, and Jimmy's always right there. You're always there to help, and you've helped so many of our kids already. Yeah,
they're helping themselves, It's like Doreen, you made this transition like down here. You make me feel just so comfortable to talk about it, and I think that's what's meaningful to me is like to see a mom out there talking about this with bravery and courage. I can fucking talk about it. You know what I mean? I don't want my mom to go through that or another person's, like nobody has to die from this disease.
Right. And there should be no shame.
And because that's what we're preventing. We're working hard so that people can just be healthy, Well,
and if someone had cancer or diabetes, would you be ashamed of that? No. Well, this is also an illness that, you need to get help for. It kind of partners in there with mental illness. There's help. And if you talk about it, you can get help.
And I'm hoping that just us talking about this, like somebody sees this and somebody either reaches out to us, reaches out to someone in their neighborhood, call someone you know who's sober, talk to your family, talk to your friends, because we don't need anybody else to pass away. And like I said, with the fentanyl, it's everywhere. Like the pills look the same whether they got fentanyl in it or not,
Yeah.
So
I belong to a group on Facebook, parents that have lost a child from overdose, fentanyl, and they send out all these links of all the fentanyl that's confiscated at our border that's coming in. And I mean, there was one bust that it was enough to kill every person in the United States of all the fentanyl pills that they've gotten. And now they're making the fentanyl look like they're putting it in colored pills that it looks like candy. And there was just a 13-year-old boy that passed away in Colorado. He wasn't even an addict. He took one pill that his friend gave him, and it was laced with fentanyl. And I mean, I read so much of this and I see it. One day, Jackson Ryan came home from kindergarten and he said to me, "Nanny, somebody gave me a candy today." And right away, I started panic. And I'm like, "Who gave you a candy?" "Well, I don't know." And I'm like, "Well, where was it?" "Somebody put it in my locker at school." Well, I'm starting to panic. And I'm like, "What did you do with that candy?"
Yeah.
"He ate it." So, he's only 6. He's too young to know about, the fentanyl and all the dangers of that. So I just said, "Jackson, you have no idea where that pill has been. You don't know if it was on the ground and maybe somebody had dog poop on their shoes and stepped on that." And just to get him to realize that, it's dirty and you don't know where it's been, that you can't be taking something like that, as young as kindergarten.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I freaked out. I'm like, "Oh, my gosh, it's starting in kindergarten." It obviously was okay because he was okay. He said it looked like a Smartie. And I said, "Well, was the Smartie in a package?" "No, it was just one individual Smartie." And I just thought it was weird.
I was in this meeting one time, and I know this woman, and I worked with her. She was actually my tech. So she was a staff member when I was in rehab. And when she shares her story, part of her story is her 4-year-old son took one of her Suboxones or methadone or something like that. And when you hear the story of that, it's going back to our whole thing with safe med lockup, and safe of disposing and everything like that. The woman, and oh man, yeah. So, well, Doreen, I want to really thank you for doing this. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, and it means a lot. Was it too bad? Were you I know you were really nervous before. It wasn't that bad, was it?
No, it wasn't that bad because you were here.
Okay.
But Jimmy, I'm so proud of you, and that's one of the other things that when you're talking with someone in recovery and they know that they're in recovery, and always tell them how proud you are of them. And I mean, I tell the kids that we work with every time I talk to them or every time I text them that I'm so proud of you. So I'm proud of you, and you are my 5th son.
Thank you, Doreen. Yeah, I was telling Robin the other day, somebody had asked about Robin and how she was doing, and ear to ear, she's got a sponsor, she's going to meetings, she's got a home group, she just moved out of sober living. So proud of her. And later on that day, I had called her and told her about that. And usually I try to keep those things to myself. I don't know why. I feel like when somebody reaches out to me and they say, "Oh, you helped me get sober, I got a year," or like, "Bro, you helped me so much in groups," I don't like sharing it because I feel like my friends or people will think that I'm arrogant or something like that. So
no, it needs to be shared.
But you're right. And when I do share it, I see that it's received so well. Like my sister was in tears because she was so happy, and it's just like, you're right. Yeah, that's it. Because I'm proud of them. I'm proud of myself. And I feel like I don't know. I just as and I don't think this is just me. I think this is everybody. You know what I mean? We just get to these places where we don't really know the direction we're going, and we're confused about kind of like our place, you know, and to hear somebody affirm that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing the right thing, can get that totally out of my head and push me on the right direction. So I think it's important that we keep on. Thank you, Doreen.
Well, you've made a huge impact in our community. And our first young man that I drove to rehab, he is clean and sober. It'll be 3 years in November.
That was the intervention, right?
No, that was another one.
Yeah.
He's doing great too.
Okay.
Yeah, he's doing great too.
Who's the 3 years that I had nothing to do with that one?
No, that was our he was a friend of Ryan's, and his was mostly alcohol, drinking, and
what an incredible
he needed some help.
That Ryan's friends know who to go to. Mm-hmm. You know, that's incredible, Doreen.
And I stay in touch with, all of Ryan's friends that reach out, and, they'll text me on Ryan's birthday, and it's just a great thing.
That's awesome. Keeping him, and it's so funny. I'm glad that you told me just kind of like how people should react to somebody whose loved one passed away. It's like, say their name, keep them alive, keep them out there, you know what I mean? And keep it positive and bright, and don't be afraid to say it. Because, I mean, I feel like that's my default mode, and I feel like that's some people's default mode, that they don't want to bring up those emotions and stuff like that, but...
And unless you've been there, don't say to them, I understand. I know how you feel. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Unless you've been through this and have actually lost a child, you don't know.
Yeah.
But always let them know, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm here for you.
Yeah, like Jessica, she's pregnant right now, and I'm telling her, like, I understand. I don't fucking understand. I've never been pregnant. I don't know anything about that. You know what I mean? So I see it like that. And it's the same thing when I have, like, you're amazing because you ask questions to understand the addict's mind rather than, like, tell someone that you understand it. You know what I mean?
Well, remember that time I asked you, do you ever not think about addiction? You've been clean for 6-7 years now. Can you forget about it, or is it an everyday choice you have to make?
I choose not to forget about it. That's the way that I would put that today. Just for today, I would say I choose not to forget about it. And like yesterday, I ran this group, and I asked the clients to think about a statement that I wrote on the board. And the statement I wrote on the board was, I never have to use again. And we had a debate on, do I ever have to use again? And they created every single reason that you can imagine as to why they will have to get high later on in the future. And all I did was like draw a comma and added today. And it just changed the whole function of that sentence. I never have to use again today. Just today, I don't have to use. And just for today, I identify as an addict. Because if I do not identify as an addict, then I may come to believe that I can use and cause more problems.
So does that urge ever go away?
Yeah, that uncontrollable desire to use, it does. It just slowly over a period of time it fades. And it can come back strong. But the thing is, for me, it's never going to come back so strong that I'm going to either get high or dope sick. So that's the thing for me. It's like, the thought is a thought. I don't have to go get high because I want to get high or because I'm thinking of getting high. That's for me, So
when you think of yourself as an addict, even though you're in recovery, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, do you think of an addict as negative? Oh, I'm an addict. Or do you think I'm an addict in recovery? I mean, how do you...
Positively. like that,
Possibly.
the same thing with like someone with cancer who's in remission. They're happy. They're like, I survived cancer. You know what I mean? I'm in remission from my cancer. And it's the same way for them. They should identify that as a person who had cancer or could get cancer again in order to prevent it. And that's the way that I see it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm proud that I'm no longer struggling from the disease of addiction and I'm in recovery, and it's easier for me to assume that that disease can come back and make my life unmanageable, so that I follow what I need to do to prevent that, rather than think, oh, well, I could do this or I could do that, because then I could be opening a door for a problem that I don't even know is going to happen.
So when you just meet a person, do you tell them that you're an addict in long-term recovery?
No. Okay. I try to just be a normal person. I want to be, I want that to be like a surprise. You know what I mean? Like, when I do tell people that I'm in recovery, I want them to be like, what the are you serious, dude? You don't even seem like someone who use drugs, you know what I mean? And that's, I want...
Because I would wonder if people would put up walls if you would say that in the beginning.
Well, that's how I feel, you know what I mean? Because if I were to come off rip and say that I'm an addict, then maybe they will judge me and think differently about me, But if I can show them that I'm like a normal person, and then disclose that I'm in recovery, I feel like that does more for adjusting the stigma than me just being open about it, And I am open about it. It's just not like the first thing that I talk about, I'd rather say I'm a dad than I'm in recovery, But yeah, that's just kind of like always in the back of my mind, as far as like like just being conscious about things, Yeah.
Well, I know sometimes, like, if I go to certain meetings, and I almost feel like the outsider because I'm not in recovery. Everybody else here is in recovery and I'm not. And it's like, well, can I just please say I'm in recovery? Can I be in recovery?
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes I don't belong there.
Yeah. I think maybe you don't, I think anybody's welcome to an NA or an AA room, you know what I mean? Or a 12-step meeting, whatever the case may be. But maybe the knowledge that you need is beyond that. Maybe like for me, I don't go to meetings as much as I should all the freaking time, but I'm constantly seeking knowledge about addiction, about mental health, about myself, my brain works, talking with other addicts in recovery, in active addiction, just trying to build an understanding of it. So for me, that's like constantly working on it, putting it in my radar. And because we don't have, I don't know everything about addiction. So we don't have enough. They say that the one who is the person addicted today is most fortunate, for they have all the resources, right? Like we've ever had. 5 years ago or 7 years ago, we didn't have as many resources as we do now. Yeah. So those who are addicted today are more fortunate. For the first time in man's entire history, a simple way has been proven itself in the lives of many addicts. 12-step recovery, I think anybody could benefit from that, but actually going to the room where addicts are sharing and learning from one another, I would only go there if I was an addict.
I only go now if I'm taking one of our clients who maybe can't drive, and I'll say, do you want me to go in with you? If they say yes, I'll go in with them. Otherwise I sit in the car.
Why did you stop going to the Al-Anon meetings?
The Nar-Anon
meetings, yeah.
Because when we lost Ryan, I stopped going. I went back that one time, and then I don't go.
I went to... Is there a reason? It's sad.
It's
dude,
too sad.
I went to one. So when Robin was really bad, this is like 2010. Me and my dad went to a Nar-Anon meeting in Boston, and one of the guys shared that 3 of his family members died that week. Yeah. And me and my dad didn't know. You know what I mean? We're like, we're not supposed to be here. Like, Robin's not that. And when they took my dad and like went for a walk or something, my dad went to smoke a cigarette, and all the women and men were like hounding me about Robin. And I remember defending Robin because I was using at the time. And I'm like, dude, Robin smokes pot and does Percocets. Like, what do you mean? There's nothing wrong with that. And they're like, you need to like tell your dad that this stuff's happening and you need to do this. And I remember being like, no, you need to fucking get off my case, you know? And we never went back ever to any of those meetings.
Some of the meetings gave you good information, but they were also, to me, gloom and doom. I mean, I would leave there sometimes and I'd be so depressed. It's like, does anybody ever get out of this vicious cycle?
Like, what is the hope?
Yeah. Is there no hope here? And
that's why I love what you do.
And Ryan hated meetings. He hated going to the meetings. And he said to me, Mom, they're all gloom and doom. And he says, I'm not one of those people. And I would say, but Ryan, you really are. You're going to get the help. But I'm not one of those people. You know, he hated the meetings because he said they were all gloom and doom. He said, they're not fun. They're not fun to go to.
Yeah, that was, I'll tell you what, I'm really grateful that I did go to those meetings because I was that same way. And somewhere along the way, it just fucking changed. And I don't know what happened, but I looked around the room and I was just like, I remember when I was in band and I would look around, I played percussion, so I was the cool one. And I remember sitting back and looking out at the band and being like, look at all these fucking nerds, dude. And it never dawned on me that I was a nerd in the band too. And that was the realization that I had in NA. I was looking around like fucking fiends, dope fiends, crackheads, this and that. And I was like, I'm here. Like, I'm looking at them like that. They must be looking at me like that, which means I'm one of them. And that realization made me kind of, it didn't change. It just made me kind of be a little bit more open-minded and listen. And the more I listened and the more open-minded I got, they were like, get a sponsor, work steps. And I was like, dude, that's a fucking piece of cake. I was basically like, I'm going to do your steps. I'm going to get your sponsor. And if this doesn't work, you have nothing to tell me because I fucking did it. And when I did it, it had actually worked. And I was like, it worked. I don't know how, but from doing these questions, calling this guy every day, going to these meetings, I feel like a new person, and I'm ready to conquer cigarettes. I'm ready to conquer, sex. I'm ready to conquer, unhealthy eating, So from there, it was just, I used that platform to just kind of continuously better myself. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how it kind of works out.
Yeah. Well, I used to think that Ryan saying that about the meetings, was he in denial? Was he denying that he was an addict? I don't know. I know for me, that was it. What you're saying, that denial, refusal to accept addiction is true for me. I was refusing to accept the new way of life, the new everything that had to go with it. I just did not want it, and literally the only way that I got it was to keep on coming back. That was the only, and I didn't go by choice. The treatment center brought us. So I went to 60 meetings in 60 days because we were brought to them. If I wasn't brought to those, I would have done a day, a week, and just said, fuck this, you guys are tossing around God word too much. I need more than the steps. You don't understand me, and yada, yada, yada. So I believe that me being brought there was good for me. And
I'm someone who believes in treatment too. Like, I believe that I know a lot of people who had successful stories from treatment, and most of the people who I know who have like long-term sobriety, like, went to some sort of treatment, went to meetings and stuff like that. So,
But was it a longer treatment, like longer than 6 weeks or 9 weeks?
yeah, I did 8 weeks in partial hospitalization, then another 3 months, so 12 weeks in intensive outpatient, and then I did, so that's 6 months, and then I did another 5 months in sober living. So I was under the umbrella of treatment for 11 months before I moved out. Yeah. So, and in that time, constantly surrounding myself with people who are also sober. I was going to meetings. My friends were sober. It was just a whole, like, sobriety became just like a hobby. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, go to meeting. I don't have anything to do. Well, I'll just go to a meeting, and that kind of made it attainable for me. If I was like, dude, I don't have anything to do. If I do this now, then maybe I can do it later,
Yeah.
So, but well, all right, Doreen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it very much. And if anybody out there would like to get in touch with Doreen, how can they reach you?
My website is inryansnameinc.com.
Awesome. All righty, folks. Thank you so much, and take care.